Next phase, let's go ahead and do some wheels. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer so you can see. Now here's a little trick too. Hold the Alt or your Option key with Command and rotate up. You're actually tilting the camera from its own pivot versus the view itself. You can also move just down like this, like this. All right, so again, select the material, click, there's our wheels. Very simply, the rubber, we're just going to make a kind of a dull grayish color here. But this is something that's interesting that we don't want them too shiny. I mean, certainly we love Armor All on our tires and make them really good, but it really wouldn't be that shiny. So let's take the specular amount down to about 3%. I'm still going to leave the Fresnel on, however, just so it picks up a little bit of that realistic light. See, it's a little more shading here, a little darker here. Okay, if I turn that off, it's going to flatten it out just a little bit. And if I bring this specular color down to black, it's just kind of dull. So I'm adding just a little bit of light right here. Put Fresnel maybe at about 80% so that as the light changes, as our camera moves, that will pick up light a little bit differently and look a little more realistic. And we can use some texture on there and some bump maps and things later, but for now, let's just leave it. We're going to do it in other areas. Let's go ahead and select the rim. Now for the rim, it's really pretty easy. Now there's certainly a lot more we can do to all these materials, and we'll get there, but I just want to show you that all these basic materials with the new physically based shader can look really good. And so for this one, all we got to do is give it a nice metal gray color. We'll make them a little bit shinier. And we're going to bring up the specular amount to maybe about 60%. Nice. And then let's bring that roughness down. Give that a little more polish, a little lower roughness. And this is where I can put my anisotropic up, or anisotropy. Such an odd word. It's about 70%. And what that's going to do, there it is, you can see it. Right here where there's some of these highlights and reflections, they become more streaked than they do round. It just gives it a little bit more realism. It's all those subtle things that happen in the real world that are now in 3D, which is great. All right, so full scene. And by the way, I should talk about reflection rays. It defaults to 64. If you press asterisk, let's say 3, you can times 3 and keep that math the same as far as how those rays are calculated. But you're then giving the reflection for that material that much more detail. More rays are being cast, and it's calculating at a finer rate. I'm going to leave it down to 64. We don't need it on the wheels. You may want to put it on the car itself. You may want to increase that a little bit, but for now it's okay. All right, so now we got some nice rims. And while I'm in here, let's go underneath the car. Let's click right there. And you can see here it says interior material. So for that, I'm just going to actually make it a default kind of dark gray right now because I'm not sure if that's the interior for the car itself, which it might be. Yeah, right there. Or if it was just the undercarriage. So that default gray will work fine for us. Let's go ahead and take care of this little bumper down here. So the bumper, we can make anything we want. I'm going to click on that. And you'll see up here, front, what is that? What are they calling that? A splitter. Front splitter. Now, we could make it gray. Maybe I want to carry on some of the same material from the surface of the body. So here's the thing we can do. Let's go down to the body material. Let's click on it and rename it car body. I'm going to right click and copy it. Now I can have put this in my library so that I could use it over and over. And the way to do that, just drag it in there and then right click, duplicate it, and then you can put one back in there. And then I can duplicate it again if I wanted rather than copying and pasting. And then I can drag this up to the splitter. And now I've just copied and pasted in a different way. So I don't use the library too much. I just copy and paste, but that option is there if you like. And what I can do now with all those settings is go in and change the color. I don't know if I want to go to yellow necessarily, but why not? It's NASCAR. And now for these rivets, what I want to do is go to my rim. So let's take the rim, right click, we're going to copy that, select these little bolts, right click and paste. There we go. So we got some nice metal bolts on there that match those. And let's save this. All right, so not so hard at all with just some of the basic material settings to make something look really cool. I mean, I love using some of these presets because it just makes things so much easier, but there's clearly a lot more we can do. Let's do just a few more, and then we'll get on to making a little bit more of a ground for it. So go back to the selection tool. Let's click on the back spoiler there, that rear wing, and we'll rename that too. And I'm just renaming just to stay organized. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I want to filter down just to materials later, and I open this up, I'll actually be able to see them a little bit more clearly, just so I know what they are. So what is the rear wing? Well, the rear wing is the car body, and here it is in the library. So I can right click, duplicate it once, and drop it on top. And then rename that rear wing, and just delete the other. So necessarily, the library, it's okay if you build a library and you want to save that with your scene. I just generally copy and paste. It doesn't seem to make much difference to me. But that's your call. Now let's select this guy right in here. This is the window mesh. That's just going to be kind of a dark black, and really that doesn't have to have any specularity or shine on it. We can make it a little bit grayer though, not so black. It just looks fake that way. And I think the last thing is, I'm going to save this too. The last thing is I want to come in and I want to get to that dashboard. And the way I'm going to do it is just kind of, zoom in and get a closer look. Here's our steering wheel and our dash and everything else. Select the dash. It says roll cage. Well, the roll cage obviously would be some sort of metal. All right, and I'm just going to do that. Increase that specularity a bit. I'm going to leave roughness where it is. The steering wheel, obviously kind of dark. And not much specularity there. Little Fresnel. Steering column. Okay, so you get the idea. And I'm not going to go through all these. I'll go ahead and do them on my own, but something you can do as well. Shift A, fit that to view. Alt, Option, rotate around. There we go. So it's looking really good, just with basic surfaces. But let's go a step further. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next video, and let's use some textures and some procedurals to create a cooler looking ground on here, because our car is actually looking really good.